Hello! Welcome to the Essentially Wild Orange podcast. I'm Laura of BackToCenterSpace.com, an integrative veterinarian, yoga teacher, and Ayurveda health counselor. I'll be joined with Christina of HealingWithTeeny.com, a massage therapist and mother of 4. We are certified essential emotions coaches, offering an experience for you to find your own brilliance, your own inner wisdom, your own emotional healing, and even supporting others around you to do the same. We use neuroscience-backed techniques with certified pure essential oil science to educate and inform, to support your learning and daily use when you need it most. Whether it's navigating the meltdown in the grocery store, or that feedback meeting for work, or that family event to come, we are here to support you in your emotional well-being. We coach mental health conscious women who are choosing to live lives of vibrancy and joy, basically finding their inner source of wild orange, one aroma at a time. So without further ado, come join us in the grove. Welcome to the Essentially Wild Orange podcast.
Welcome to the Essentially Wild Orange podcast. We are so excited. This is our first episode with everybody. We hope that you guys are as excited to be here with us as we are to be here with you. Laura, a little background. Laura and I got to be really good friends. We talk about emotions all the time. And one day we thought, I think other people would like to get in on this conversation. So that is how the Essentially Wild Orange podcast was born. We love to be able to share our insights as essential emotions coaches, but we also just love the connection of being with each other and being with you and being able to talk about what truly brings us joy, what our hard times are, and who we are as people inside.
It's being able to witness each other in our feelings. It's being able to honor that in this human experience, we can have feelings about things, and sometimes it's what we've learned that will influence the feelings, and sometimes it's because of how we have felt about stuff that is limiting us from taking the next steps, that's getting in our way about our best intentions and becoming the best versions of ourselves or showing up in a different way. Uh, and also around what healing looks like for us. You know, it's easy to get the scratch and then watch our skin heal, but how do we do that around emotions when sometimes it's the same feels come up, the same conversations come up, that we're having the conversation during our next holiday gathering, and you can just feel it already. So it was a beautiful realization between Christina and myself that emotions matter, emotions need to be discussed, and we do not need to be kept captive. We are meant for freedom. We have a baseline that's our birthright around feeling good in our body, feeling joy. And this isn't something that has to be earned, but might need to be learned or relearned because of our various life experiences and the stories we tell ourselves, right?
Agreed. And the beautiful thing in all of this is there is a very intentional way. There are intentional tools that we can utilize to be able to help us go from just continuing to tell that story, which is an important story to be told about when you had those feelings and what caused them and all of those things. But it gets those feelings out of our heads and into our body, which is, fun fact, where we keep our feelings anyway, but we're able to make that connection between body and mind and have a very specific protocol that we're going to share with all of you guys. We're going to bring that every single episode, and we're going to be able to share with you how to take that emotion, fully feel it, choose to let it go, and then create a new experience. So
Mm-hmm.
with that being said, let's introduce our emotion of the day and our essential oil that goes along with the support of that emotion. And Laura, do you
Oh yes. Oh
want to tell
yes, we'll do.
everybody?
We'll do. It's
Okay.
almost like it's the basis of Essentially Wild Orange podcast, and that's the essential oil of wild orange, the oil of abundance, and the oil that reminds us that of the things that are possible. And the flip side, if things aren't abundant, it's scarcity, it's lack, it's nothingness. And so our episode today is going to be going between scarcity and abundance. And potentially some of the things that are the triggers for Christina and myself. So if you know yourself and scarcity is one of your big emotions that like I don't need to hear someone else's story. I would like to process it on my own. Give me the goods. Feel free to skip ahead and explore the breakthrough process, which will happen at the second half of our episode.
And we
But
should have
yes.
that timestamp in our notes below too. So you'll be able to click on that for the timestamp if you just want to skip straight to the breakthrough process. But yeah, so kind of to begin this conversation about abundance and scarcity, I thought it might be fun to kind of talk about why did we choose literally the oil of abundance as the name of our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. Love it. Love it.
yeah. So I mean, I guess I'll share my thoughts first on it, which is I think I spent so many years trying to repress or get rid of or judge or not face the negative emotions, right? Like the emotion of scarcity, the emotion of fear, the emotion of anxious feelings, like those types of things. It's like those are all kind of termed as bad, right? But what I have learned throughout my years, and especially the last few years as I have become certified with essential emotions, is that all emotions are so important. And emotions are nothing more than teachers. They they come into our life, they come into our body, they come into our mind to teach us things. And we get to fully go through that experience and then release it. And then we go on being a better, a more whole, a more joyful, at peace person once we have learned what we need to learn from those emotions and those experiences. And so, um, having the oil of abundance, we just felt like was the perfect name for our podcast, the Essentially Wild Orange podcast, because our emotions are essential in our life.
Mm-hmm. They are the things that make us human and can separate us from the other creatures in the animal kingdom. And it's also our ability, our superpower as human beings to suppress or to amplify our feelings. Um, a little bit of a background is I am an integrative veterinarian in my other profession, and working with animals, I definitely get to see fear. I get to see some of what in our human experience would be the negative emotions. Um, fear being the big one. Scared, sometimes anger, sometimes the anxious feelings. And the thing that's a little bit different about people is that feelings are designed to keep us safe. They're here to ensure our safety, yet it's also a learned process. Like we don't necessarily get attacked by lions and tigers and bears on a daily basis, but sometimes we've got that quiz, we've got that test, we've got that feedback meeting, we've got that review that we're supposed to be doing, and that poses a threat to our well-being. That poses a threat to our status as students, our intelligence, or how people perceive us and our intelligence. It can influence our jobs themselves. It can influence our pay. It can influence some of those things, which again, stability. again, it's a threat to our experience as people. And the thing that I see is how do we learn how to feel and let our emotions do their little loops. The good news is there is this blooming, budding research all around what are the different biochemical processes, what are the different chemistry markers in the brain that are released when we feel different emotions. And as a result of that, how they can be helpful, like feeling joyful, feeling light, feeling happy, or how they can be a little bit limiting to our experience. So how how does serotonin get released for us, or are we feeling a lot more cortisol? We're feeling more stress hormones when we're having conversations with people, rather than being like, it's okay, it's a friend. We could be feeling a little bit more serotonin, but because of how we've been trained, how we are used to feeling certain things, maybe we're ending up feeling more stress, and it's a protective experience on our body, rather than it being a positive light feeling experience on our body. So when we're talking about emotions, when we're talking about being able to use essential oils as a biohack. And again, it's not very fancy. It's not very glamorous. Maybe Christina will be able to demonstrate for us, like, what does using essential oils in our emotional regulation, it's like, what does that look like? It's we're taking some smells out of a bottle. We're cupping our hands over our face, and we're letting the oil do the work. We're letting our sense of smell do the work. And it's not meant to be a cure. It's not meant to be a fix. It's meant to be 1%, 5%, 30%, 50% improvement in how we're feeling. And then we're able to navigate the next thing. We're able to learn or relearn what is actually the threat, what is actually the safety.
Yeah,
So that's all why essentially wild orange. We're beginning with abundance.
yeah, I love that. And I'm pre filming today, Laura and I were having a conversation, and so interesting. And I'm gonna be just real with you guys. Like 6 hours ago this morning, I had had a really tough couple of last weeks, and I was sitting there thinking, how in the world am I gonna put my happy face on to record this episode? To like, I was really kind of stressing about it. And I had just the hugest morning of growth, of realizing, I mean, and sometimes you got to continue to realize things, right? Like I already knew this, but I needed to remember that the abundance of feelings that I've been feeling the last few weeks, which has been a lot. Let me tell you, like I've had a lot of feelings the last few weeks, but they were necessary to be able to get me to take the next level in my life, to be able to do the next thing, to be able to take the next step. And so this is a journey. This is not, the abundance is in the journey. It's kind of like there's a quote from somebody I really like that talks about taking a train ride, and how the train ride, like that sounds really awesome, but you actually get on a train. I don't know if any of you guys have ever taken a train ride, and it's kind of boring sometimes. And then sometimes it's really bumpy. And sometimes like you just want to lay down and go to sleep, but you have to sit in this chair. And like sometimes the journey, there can be some yucky stuff on it that isn't so fun. But then on the journey, there's some beautiful vistas that you get to see out the window, and some thrilling downright, or when the train goes down a hill, or like there's some thrilling parts of the ride. But really, when it comes down to it, the abundance of the ride, like you get to be on this ride, you get to be on this journey. And so for me, I'm like, wow, the last few weeks, I've been on quite the journey with all of my abundance of feelings. But without that ride, it wouldn't have put me here where literally a few hours before I need to film to talk to all of you guys about abundance, I'm finally able to make all these connections for myself, but be able to share with all of you that it's normal to go through these ups and downs. That's emotions. That's
Mm.
the abundance of emotion. Sometimes we have highs, sometimes we have lows, and we have this experience in this life of dealing with this abundance of emotions. But I feel like, at least for me, and maybe you can relate, Laura, and maybe some of our listeners can relate, but it is when I really kind of like hang on for dear life and I start to really delve into fear, that I have the experience right then to choose, like, do I need to be afraid right now? Or can I, in some sense, let go with the faith of this is all part of the ride?
Mm. And
What
it
do you think?
really sounds like you're giving yourself permission to feel the feelings and even witness them. It's like, oh, I'm noticing I'm going uphill. Oh, I'm noticing I'm a little bit scared about something. It's not suppressing. It's not depressing. It's not bottling. It's being able to say, wow, this is big for me, and I'm wondering what's going to happen on the other side. There's an elimination of I can't, I won't, this isn't allowed, and it's being able to just let the body do the feeling without there being any limits on it. And certainly it's like when it comes to feeling emotions, different people will have different experiences around feeling an emotion and what it means. And what I'd be really curious about is, does anybody remember the first time that they felt scarcity, the first time that they felt fear, the first time that, if there's something that they're afraid of, or if there's something that they're like, I'm really not a fan of, like, what was the first time with that? What did it feel like? And now what has happened as the years have gone by, because it's like, well, I'm starting to feel a little XYZ about that thing, and I can't, nope, 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 I'm just gonna ignore it, I'm gonna stuff it, and then it's like it doesn't get addressed, it doesn't get resolved, and then the next time that thing comes around, how much bigger is it, how much broader is it, how much does it cause the body to freeze or to feel the things, um, that it's like it's no longer about the experience right now in this moment. It's all the other little experiences that we've had before that are now compounded into potentially something a lot bigger, a lot more painful, a lot more difficult for us to just sit with and cry about or yell about, or um, maybe it's even realizing, like, hmm, what would I like to do to express this emotion if witnessing it is not enough? It's like the feeling is caught.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's it's like when I think about abundance and that flip side of scarcity, when I'm like, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? How am I going to get how am I going to get myself out of these situations? Scarcity really feels restrictive, and it's like my whole body kind of does this little thing. And when I see people that are like this, I'm really curious, like, it's not about like opening the heart space and live light and love and all the rest of it. It's being able to honor, like, where do we feel like there isn't enough? Where do we feel
And I feel
like
like it's such a protective, like, it's almost like
mm,
you're like closing in on your heart. Like it's such a protective thing, but really, how much are you limiting yourself? How much are you actually inviting the scarcity instead of the abundance when you do that? And this conversation reminds me of we just posted on our Instagram page at Essentially Wild Orange a reel that we made about an ocean wave. And that reel actually came from me remembering I was in Hawaii about a year ago and I was with my family and I was trying to learn how to body surf. Okay. And I'm not very good at it. That's what I learned, but it was so interesting because when I look back on that situation, or on that experience, I had a daughter that was so good at riding that wave and just riding it into shore. And she had so much joy on her face when she was able
Mm,
to fully ride that wave out. And that's what we have on that reel. But then you see me, and I'm like holding on for dear life and like protecting myself. And then like the wave comes and it like pummels me into the ground. And I'm like, the waves and waters all over me. And I'm like choking on it and different things like that. And another observance is as my daughter's doing this, and I'm trying to, but it's not working out so well for me. I also had family members that had gone just far enough out in the ocean where they just were enjoying the waves that would come in. And it's like they would kind of get ready for it and they would let their body flow with the wave and it would kind of
mm,
flow them into shore. But then there's this space where if you guys have been to the ocean before on the beach, there's this space where if you stand in a certain place where your feet are on the ground, when the wave hits, it like pummels you into the ocean floor. And
mm,
so it's almost like you have to let your body get far enough into the water to really start trusting your body with the water for you to be able to very gently ride that wave. And I really feel like that's how our emotions are. And granted, not every wave is going to be a gentle wave. Some waves are going to be really huge and kind of scary. Like you see a big wave coming and it kind of scares you, even if you do feel like you're kind of one with the ocean and you're ready to ride it. But then other waves are really gentle. And I really feel like that explains really well the types of experiences that we have in our lives where if we can become one with the fact that we're going to continue to have these emotional waves coming in and we're going to continue to need to work with them. I'm not saying it's always going to be like roses and sunshine, but I don't think we're going to be have as high of a chance of being pummeled into the ground
mm, mhm.
if we can learn to become one
Right.
with the emotions. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Absolutely, because it's that invitation to float. It's that invitation to be like, we are gonna have emotions. Check, done, understood. we
Yeah.
we are going to, and what what is going to be the glimmer, the trigger, the influence, like what is going to be the thing that kind of sets that emotion off. Sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't, but it's like we see the wave coming at us, and there's that split second choice about like, okay, do I start swimming, or do I start like brace the self, or I'd be like, okay, what happens if I relax, and then be like, okay, and I'm go, ooh, this is kind of new. And when when we have that opportunity, what is our influence on the other side? um, there has been some research done about what is the average emotional experience, and it's usually about 90 seconds. 90 seconds is brain produces the chemicals, we feel the feels based on the neural connection, the network that has been formed around that emotion. And it's like 90 seconds. It's like it comes and it goes. Where are we when we have these emotional experiences? When we're talking about when I feel scarcity, when I'm feeling not enoughness, when I'm feeling like there's something that is lacking, when I'm feeling like I'm discouraged about something, do I give myself permission for 90 seconds to kind of have like a, okay, stop working, notice, witness, 90 seconds? Because it feels like an eternity. And all we're doing is just letting our body do its chemical expression. We're not putting a story on it. We're not engaging the front part of the brain to be like, okay, well, the reason I'm feeling this way is because of this, and this is the meaning I put on it, and this is why it's not my fault, or all the things. It's just, what happens if we witness that? What happens if we're like, oh yeah, that's what that is. Okay. What happens on the other side of it is what I'm really curious about. We haven't we've certainly learned, whether it's through our cultural conditioning, our family units, how well or how creatively family members feel the feels and express the feels. Um, what's really fascinating to me is when I think about family, or I think about people in the public space that I see talking about abundance or talking about scarcity mindset. It's really fascinating because it's like they have an understanding that it's more than just a feeling. It's like it's a feeling that becomes an action.
Yeah.
It's a feeling that now has a story behind it that becomes an action, and then now all of the behaviors are linked back to the feeling. And it's like scarcity mindset. Oh, I'll never be good enough for that job. Oh, there's not enough jobs for me. Oh, I'll never get that promotion. And then it's like that becomes the neural network that keeps getting reinforced, instead of us being like scarcity mindset. Okay, I'm feeling the feels. I want to feel abundant. I want to feel how things are available for me. I want to feel how there is that possibility. And I'd say good news, will explore through our breakthrough session the feeling of things, and how do we make that switch from something negative to something positive, because negative is very in our body, but we also know what it feels like when there's that light, when there's that lightness, when there is that space for something new. And I think what some of that, it's like an invitation of just, are we going to let ourselves notice how we're feeling? Or how often do we say, like, I am upset, instead of I am feeling upset? I am discouraged, instead of I am feeling discouraged. I am an embodiment of this thing,
That's
instead of I'm feeling this.
Yeah,
Are you
that is
feeling me? Are you
such
feeling
a good
me?
point. I love that so much. It's so true. It's like we become our emotion. Like when that really isn't who we are.
No.
We get to experience this emotion, but we don't have to become the emotion. It's kind
Yes.
of like taking it back to my experience of the ocean. It's like that almost feels like I am literally still being pummeled into the ground by that wave. Like I'm literally on the ocean floor, like gagging with all the water and like I'm choosing, and I think that word choose, that is really huge, that like I didn't deal with that wave in a safe way, or maybe it was too big of a wave for me to handle.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm pummeled on the ocean floor. And at that point, I've got to try and get myself up out of that. And that can be a process too.
Mm-hmm.
But I am not that emotion. So I love that differentiation of choose to remember who you are, and that you're not that emotion. I love that.
Mm-hmm. It's also a reminder of, we are not our thoughts. They're just the things that float to us. And I guess a the exciting thing is, like, if there's a problem in our life, we might be the problem, and we get to be the solution. We are the solution. We have the capacity, if we choose to see some of the things, and if we recognize our capacity for those things.
Yeah.
Because I'd say it's just like the areas around physical well being, we recognize, like, yeah, there can be some real physical limits that keep bodies from being in better or best stages of health. The
Mhm.
same can be true for emotions. The same can be true for mental. It's like, yeah, there can be limits on those. And we're certainly not saying, like, you just think your way and you will become that. It's like, did you miss the part? Rewind, re listen about the brain chemistry influencing potentially how we're feeling about things and how our thoughts can influence how we feel, and how we feel can influence what we do or not do. It's like our actions are going to be influenced by all of these things. And I'd say the good news is if we can if we can play back the wave getting pummeled by the wave, and we can be like, "Oh, right. So I was really tense here. I didn't let myself
Yeah,
float to the surface."
learn from it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 And treat it just like it we can offer compassion to ourselves, and we can
Yes.
choose what that looks like and what that feels like for us. And if we've never felt what we think, like, what does compassion feel like? I'm not sure what that emotion feels like. I love the idea of when you have enjoyed something positive, what did it feel like? And then that's the feeling you invite. That's the memory you invite. So if
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know what joy is, but I'm pretty sure having a snuggly cat purring on my lap and being the chosen one out of everybody sitting in the room, like that has got to be joy. What does that feel like to me? That's abundance. That's that beautiful capacity for feeling lighter, for feeling richer, for feeling like I can float to the surface rather than be heavy, stuck to the ground.
Yeah. Well, and it
Yeah.
almost feels like scarcity. That almost feels to me like kind of victim. Like I'm a
Mm-hmm.
victim. Like I don't get the things other people get. I don't have the things I need. I don't, like it feels very much like a victim mentality, which I can totally relate with. I think we all can. I think we've all had times where we're like, yeah, but this thing happened to me, or yeah, but my body does this, or yeah, but I don't have the serotonin in my brain I need. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and those are all valid. Those are all valid points. And maybe those are things that to be able to root out the scarcity, you also need to root out the grief and you need to
Mm-hmm.
root out the sadness and root like sometimes these emotions are layered and I really think scarcity and abundance is one of those that there's a lot of times there are kind of a lot of layers to uncover with scarcity specifically. Would you agree with that?
Hugely, hugely. It's like, and I loved it because it's like victim mentality. Can everybody relate to either being like, oh, I've got a family member who loves to play the role of, or, sometimes I feel like that too, like getting passed over for jobs that I think I was eligible for, had the skills for, not getting selected or chosen for particular things. Why did this thing have to happen to me? It's like, absolutely, absolutely. And it's curious because there misery loves company, right? There are these fantastic structures in our brain, again designed to keep us safe and designed to build connection, called mimic neurons. And it's like, it's really hard to be the optimistic, bubbly person at the staff meeting where everybody is exchanging their woes, their sad stories, their, oh, you think you got it bad, let me tell you a story. It's
My
like,
favorite.
yes. And it's also being able to recognize, like, oh, we as humans like to be part of a group, and
Yeah.
we can honor, like, where does this friction come from, to be like, life is pretty good for me, I don't have anything to complain about. Like the things on social media that are like, when everybody starts complaining about their wives, I'm like, I don't, because she's perfect. It's like, again, what is the effect on scarcity to the collective?
Yeah.
We're recording this in 2024. A couple years previously, the world kind of shut down. And let me tell you, if there was ever a demonstration of scarcity, the people that were hoarding toilet paper. Do
It's
you do you
true.
do we
Well,
do we need five 20 count things of toilet paper. Like I was thinking I was the person to be like bags of rice. Like I can eat rice and beans, because I don't know what the food supply is going to be doing, but people are like getting into altercations around toilet paper, and I'm like, well, this is a very interesting exercise in scarcity mentality. It'd be like you're concerned about sitting on the toilet and not having the triple ply. Okay,
Well, and
but
it really comes down to fear. Like
mhm,
it's that fear. It's that fear of the wave, the fear of, the fear of feeling the feelings you don't want to feel, the fear of not having what you need, like I really think it's all based in fear.
mhm. What happens? Like the flip side of, okay, if it's not the fear of like, oh, the wave is coming for me, by us being able to feel it, honor it, witness it, be aware of it, and then being able to be like, oh, I've got my life vest. The wave can't pummel me.
Yeah.
Like what becomes on the other side of that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Once you choose to let that scarcity, like you feel it, you're curious about it, but then that's the beauty. Then you can learn from it. Why
Mm,
am I feeling this scarcity? Why am I feeling this fear? And then you can put your life jacket on, be like, oh, actually, if I put this life jacket on, I'm going to be okay. Or so it takes you out of this fight or flight and it puts you in a place where you can actually take the steps you need
mm-hmm,
to put you in a place of actually, I have abundance. I have, like, I can do this for myself and I can, invite this into my life and I can put this life jacket on. Like it,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
you can, your brain starts working again when you
mm,
can choose to release that feeling of scarcity that you allowed yourself to get curious about so that you could learn from it instead of shaming yourself for it, instead of judging yourself for it, instead of judging other people that caused you to have that feeling.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like the judgment and the shame goes away and you're able to just learn from it.
Yeah, yeah. And the learning, what's beautiful about the learning is the reminder of there's there's a lesson around it. This isn't necessarily inherent. Like good news, us as human beings, our brain structure is a little bit different. So we learn to do things. We learn to respond a particular way instead of react, one would think. But
You
what
try.
is so powerful when it comes to essential oils is it's that ability to help support new neural pathways. It's a way that the chemical structures in these essential oils have the propensity to support the brain in developing new neural pathways, new ways of, I don't want to say necessarily thinking, but it's creating that little bit of space where it's like, oh, if the groove of when this happens, knee jerk is that. It is a reaction. It's never a thoughtful response. It's never a pause and choose. It's a, I'm going to fly off the handle because it's just the way that it always is. And that is the brilliance behind why essential emotions coaching is so powerful, why using essential oils is so powerful. And I'd say one of the beautiful things that both of us have witnessed, and maybe there's some of you listeners that are already doing this too, is when we start incorporating more elements of our physical being, our senses, into some of the more popular and some of the more commonplace and some of the more recognized, whether it's psychiatry, mental health therapy, counseling, those styles, they're seeing some different types of improvements. They're seeing whether it's self-report of participants, um, whether it is some of the measurables. And again, it's like one of the good things about the Essentially Wild Orange podcast is we do nerd out on science. So, including in our show notes will be a couple of articles around how some of these essential oil studies are performed. And again, you can see that one of the challenges around it is we're working with plants, Plants have different chemical constituents in them depending on the biodiversity that they're around and harvested. It can also be dependent on weather conditions of the year. The harvest one year might have some very marginally different or pretty significant differences in the constituents because of drought or because of humidity. Um, can also be source of plants, and certainly our emphasis and our work with essential oils is making sure these are pure essential oils. They're not adulterated, they're not synthetic, they've got the active constituents, and they're here to work for us. They're here to support us in the work that we do.
Well,
They
that's
just
that's really important to point out too, because I mean, we're talking science here. This is not just, oh, we're gonna use this thing. No, there's like literal, like chemical constituents in the plants. I mean, it's well known that lavender is relaxing. Well, every plant has constituents like that. And so you're gonna want to use an essential oil that you can count on its purity because you want the correct constituents for the correct emotions. So wild orange has constituents in it that help to elevate your mood, to help the types of emotions that come up with that scarcity mindset, that it helps you remember to be more abundant. It literally is a lifting oil. And
mm-hmm.
so yeah, I'm really excited. We're both really excited to share with you guys a process, a protocol to be able to do that. You can do this for yourself. You can hire essential emotions coaches, which we do coaching, but then there's also other people you can hire. But I do love just that you have the ability to have the oils in your own home and to be able to take, Laura had talked at the very beginning of this, 90 seconds, a wave of emotion goes through in about 90 seconds. We're going to teach you how you can take an oil and in 90 seconds be able to choose to let something go and to invite something new, to let that scarcity go and invite abundance into your life. And then the beauty of that is every single other time that you feel that same emotion, what our brains do is we have these neural pathways that we created from previous experiences that we've had. Every time we feel that same emotion, our brain loves to go down that same neural pathway that we created. Well, during this process, we're going to teach you guys, you get to create a new neural pathway. And the beauty and the power of using an essential oil to do that is that number one, it's that brain body connection. It is you literally through your nose have a straight shot into your amygdala in your brain, which holds emotions and memories. Okay, that combo, which means in the future, after you've done this protocol for yourself, in the future, when you feel that emotion again, which you're going to feel that emotion of scarcity, of fear, of whatever it is, you can quickly become, I mean, it's important to become curious about what you're feeling and be like, oh yeah, I'm feeling scarcity right now. You can pull out your wild orange. You can put a couple of drops in your hand. You can smell that during your wave of emotion, and it will literally remind your brain to go back to the neural pathway that you created for yourself today to be able to deal with the emotion in a better way, a way that's going to serve you better, to bring you more peace and more joy in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the exciting part, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So everyone, go and grab your wild orange if you have it, and then buckle up for a breakthrough process. We're going to bring that to you after this brief little commercial break. Essentially Wild Orange podcast is brought to you by the Aroma Essentials Collection by doTERRA. A simple way for us to eliminate the toxic smells in our home space and our emotional lives directly from nature herself. The Aroma Essentials collection includes the La Luz diffuser and 5 ml bottles of 10 doTERRA essential oil products. Proprietary blends doTERRA Balance, doTERRA Breathe, doTERRA On Guard, doTERRA Serenity, doTERRA Cheer, doTERRA Adaptive, Northern Escape, Citrus Bloom, Peppermint, and of course, Wild Orange. Begin your essentially wild orange emotional healing journey with the Aroma Essentials collection. Check out the link in the show notes for further information and to get you started. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Essentially Wild Orange podcast. We dove through those feelings of scarcity and getting connected with abundance through wild orange essential oil. If you enjoyed this podcast, let's stay connected. Subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Essentially Wild Orange. Contact us and connect with us through Instagram at Essentially Wild Orange. Or if social media isn't your thing, send us an email, essentiallywildorange@gmail.com. If you'd like to get connected up with the Aroma Essentials collection, here is your chance to do so. Getting connected with the tools that will be part of your emotional wellness from this point forward, and ones that might make an appearance in future episodes of the Essentially Wild Orange podcast. To yours in health and well-being, Essentially Wild Orange.